Well, it's actually time for our main event. We're going to talk about contractors and how to not get screwed was our original one. We didn't think that was too appropriate, so we changed it. But I want to welcome our contractor. His name's Ike Ingham. This is the guy that we worked with for the last 4 years. Absolutely amazing. And if you want to work with him, come talk to us first, and we're probably going to tell you no.
It's busy on our deals.
Next investor we'd like to welcome on the stage is Will Kim. We've done I believe we've wholesaled him a couple of properties and worked with him on some other deals as well. Welcome. Appreciate you coming and joining us. Thank you. And we have his contractor, Nathaniel. Welcome, Nathaniel. Thank you. And our last investor is Diane Oliver.
I'm not sure if she's got a contractor here or not, but she uses a lot of contractors.
So she couldn't decide on her favorite one, so we decided that it'd be a great story for her to come up and share.
We all have different relationships with how we work with contractors. That's why we chose the panel this way, because there are different ways to do it. So we'll hear about that.
And we're going to welcome back Rich. Rich is going to be our moderator. He's going to be asking us a bunch of questions. At the end here, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a quick question and answer. And if there's not enough time, we're going to shut down at 9 o'clock, and then we can meet all at the bar and you can ask more questions fast.
Good. So let's hand it over to her.
All right. It's working. Number 3, Avery. Can you turn number 3 up?
I got a green light. I'm on. I'll be your contractor, man, okay?
Wonderful.
All right.
Well, the first thing, before we actually get to the questions for the panel, I guess a relevant topic would be, what are the top 10 questions you should ask your contractor? And I probably should have asked my contractor these questions before I put them on the slides, but I think you guys are going to find, I think he's going to agree with us. These are some pretty good questions. So, are you licensed? Number 1 question. You have to work with a licensed contractor. If you don't, you may as well leave. You may as well get out of investing because you're going to go downhill right with your contractor as well. Number 2, do you carry insurance? You want to make sure that, yes?
Why is that? You're going to pay twice the money.
Well, because you want to protect yourself. If you don't have a licensed contractor,
You'll pay a lot more money
in the long run.
So,
Well, actually, here, let's just sit down here. So, would you like to answer that question, William?
My name is Nathaniel, but to answer that, because we have a lot of competition as a contractor from guys that aren't licensed, but a lot of times we get called back. There's times I went and bid a job, and they thought the price was a little higher than someone else bidding it, and then they had us come back because they had found someone that was cheaper, and then the price actually doubles because now I have to tear out everything they did and redo it all over to make them to code. So that is to try to answer that a little bit.
You get that with the licensed contractor. There's a lot of good unlicensed contractors out there.
Yes, you do.
Yes, there are a lot of good licensed contractors out there. Unlicensed, there are. I wouldn't take the liability and I wouldn't take the risk if I was an investor. No way.
and if they're a good contractor that's licensed, bonded, and insured, if for any reason, sometimes you do run into a situation where you do have to tear everything out. The Chinese drywall being one of them. I got a horror story about that they didn't realize, and it all had to be torn out. But if you're insured and bonded with a good contractor, you might not be paying for that.
So number 2 question you should probably ask is, do you carry insurance? We all know why. Insurance protects you, protects the contractor, but mostly, again, it protects you. So make sure that they have license and insurance. They're licensed and insured.
For obvious reason, if he's not licensed, he's not going to have insurance, then you might get into trouble that way. Sorry.
Workers' comp insurance as well. If somebody falls and slips on your property, you're not the one that wants to pay for it. Your insurance company doesn't want to pay for it. We want to make sure that it falls under the contractor's insurance as well. And do you guarantee your work?
Yes, we guarantee guarantee our work. General guarantee is about 2 years on the property that we rehab. There are some guarantees that are way more than that. For example, there's a roof guarantee that runs 10 years. If there's a window or door guarantee which comes from the manufacturer, we pass it on. Cabinet guarantees that come from manufacturer, we pass that on. Flooring, tile, carpet, those guarantees we pass on. And of course, we stand behind the workmanship and installing things. So you're covered from many angles.
Yeah, same for us, and if we do also request for repairs, which is very common when we do a sell the house, anything that we touch, obviously we'll come back and if there's anything, some inspectors, a lot of home inspectors that they'll just call things out. There'll be a faceplate missing, they'll say house is burning down without the faceplate. Nobody's ever seen that, but we come back and we'll do any of those things also for free as part of our warranty as well.
Yeah, I can't stress enough how important that is to us on the investor side. We ask every contractor, right? We work exclusively through Ike now, unless there's some partnership and they've got a contractor that use it. But we bid him out, and we still spot check him. You want to check your contractors and bid them out. Yeah, it's one of our first questions. Somebody will come in with a lower bid or about the same. We said, will you guarantee your work? And even if they're licensed, bonded, insured, all of that, it's amazing how many people say, no, I'm not going to write up a 1 or 2 year guarantee. And there's stuff that comes warranty, like the roof, that falls into it, as far as like all the extra stuff. Yeah, and that's a big deal. And we want to be able to write that up and pass it on to our home buyer, which Ike does. So we can write something up and pass it on to the next buyer and say, we stand behind this. It's a huge selling point.
The next question is, do you provide references in writing? And remember, we're going to get to more questions later. These are the top 10 questions you probably should ask a contractor before working with them. And it's kind of for obvious reasons why you want references. But you want to check their work. You want to make sure that the people that they've worked for before are satisfied customers. It's pretty obvious. I mean, we've actually. There was one time where I think I decided not to check up on somebody, and I got flack from around here because I didn't do that. And absolutely, and I'm glad we did, because I think it turns out we ended up not using that contractor just because we checked on the references.
I think they showed pictures from somebody else's work.
Oh, that's another thing. You got to be careful. You can see everybody's pictures. I could find a bunch of pictures online. Doesn't mean they're mine.
Just go Wells.
Yeah, look at Will's stuff. He does some great. You guys do some great work. Will you provide me with a written lien waiver? I'll let the contractors explain that one.
Yeah, so it depends. We work personally. We work with also Will, and we also work with investment groups. So we will always give a lien release. Sometimes it gets a little shaky in the beginning. You want to give a conditional lien release upon payment, and then unconditional when you're finally paid for the final. So that's we always try to do it that way.
Well, I work exclusively with Cooper and Contractors, so that's my deal with them. I never ever have put a lien or a lien film on their properties, and I've never had problems with getting paid for it. So as far as that goes, that's there. But you should always talk to your contractor and say, hey, are you going to put a lien on that property? Because sometimes what they do is they put the lien, the job's all done, in the mess, in the fast track, you end up getting everything done. You pay the contractor, you don't get a full release from it. Now you go out to sell the house and there's a lien showing on your property. You go back to track them and they say, okay, it's going to take 15 days for me to go to my attorney, this, that. You don't want that. So make sure before you make your last payment, you have a complete release.
Big one. Number 7, who will be in charge of the job if you're not there? The question would be, is there a super on the site? And if the actual contractor you're dealing with isn't the super on the site, then you're going to want to make sure to have that contact information. Because if you can't get a hold of the contractor and something needs to get done, then you need to be able to get a hold of somebody that's doing work on that property. Anything to add to that? Okay. Number 8, do you pull all the required building permits? And again, that's going to be a dependence question. He does pull permits whenever necessary. If it doesn't meet it, then he won't do it. And number 9, what is your payment schedule? Oftentimes, we work with IVE in different ways in different capacities. Generally, a good payment schedule would be 3 payments. A third in the beginning, a third halfway through, and a third at the very, 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 very end upon releasing of the lien and upon completion of the final walkthrough and the final punch list.
When the property is all done and you're about to make your final payment, make sure you personally walk the property. Make sure you open all closet, drawers, doors, windows, make sure everything is good. Look in the attic to make sure everything is done for what was told to you that is done. And then make the payment. Make sure you get the lien release. Make sure you get the release for all workers that have worked on that property. And make sure that you're satisfied with the work. Because once you say, yeah, it's okay, oh, it's only a little touch up on the ceiling, you can come back and do it. Believe me, it's going to take 15 days before somebody does it.
Yeah, especially, I was gonna say, I'm working with a new contractor. Don't give the last payment until you're sure all the work has been done. You know, we should go to each of us after the top 10 here, just because we have different styles, different relationships with our contractors. Again, that's why we chose the panel. But our particular relationship with Ike, and it's evolved to this. We've been through a lot of contractors. And Ike's been great to us that we may pay him everything on a property without having fully checked it, because we know he's on 3 others that he needs to be paid on. So we got him on the hook anyway, you know. But yeah, when you're starting out, be real careful. And we've had that experience in the past where we've paid all the money. It's amazing how quickly 90% of the job gets done and how long it takes to get the last 10% done. Right, yeah, before it paid.
Yeah, to piggyback on what they're saying, it's the same kind of thing. It does change. You know, if you're a first time, this is your first house you're going to be doing, it's a little different. You're going to be on that house, you're going to be looking over it, you're going to be crunching numbers every night, you're going to be watching everything. But I work with some other contractors that or investors that they don't even go look at the house. They purchased it, it's done. So what my advice always is to do is go look at the house. Go with your contractor. Come there with me, with your contractor, walk it with them so you know they know exactly what you're getting. And then in the end, you can see what has been done. So when it's time to get that final payment, you know, what happens is sometimes they just buy a house, they're removed from it, they come at the very end, they're just looking around like, oh great, you know, another house. Well, you know, you just been there sweating blood and tears for 4 weeks getting that thing done on time, on budget. It helps a lot if you see that with your contractor, from a contractor's point of view. You come look at it in the beginning, and then come at the very end so you can appreciate some things. That they may do extra things in there to kind of wow you that didn't even cost you anymore, but they just want to say, hey, that looks good, you know, that. And then when you get that final check or you're going to release that, it gives it a little bit more assurance versus you just trying to pay them, you don't even know what you got each year before you start.
Positive reinforcement.
Let me just talk about how often you may want to go see your contractor. When you're first starting out and you're just trying a new contractor, my advice is go check on him almost every other day. Okay, and your job project, let's say it was, you know, whole thing durations at, let's say 5 weeks. And it was a new contractor, I would literally be there every other day just to make sure the work is moving along. Our company system is pretty detailed out in terms of having the schedule in place, our own schedule in place that we agree with the contractor. And we want to make sure everything's kind of syncing along. And it's just to try out, if you're trying out the new contractor, you just want to make sure that they're doing what they say they're going to do. So at least for first 2 weeks, first 3 weeks, you know, you want to be there more frequently.
Okay, I suppose I do it a little differently. Sometimes they're smaller deals, sometimes I have a longer term relationship with the contractor. But the way I like to set it up is that we know that the contractors have to pay their guys every Friday, right? If you're not available, they're looking for you. So almost a lesson learned more than something I've done right every time is that even on small deals, get everything in writing, get the whole scope of work in writing, get what's going to be done and paid for each week in writing. And if it's not done, you have to be strong enough to say, gee, I'm sorry, I can't pay you until that's done. Because if you don't, it just starts sliding from there, and it quickly will slide into a disaster. But the most important thing, and it's pretty obvious, I'm sure, is just get everything in writing, including who is buying materials, who's choosing materials, in what order, that kind of thing. That's kind of the way I've done it.
Yeah, we could be here probably for the next 8 hours talking about this. Fortunately,
I know you want to stay.
we're short, but we'll try to get the most pertinent questions and the most basic stuff out of the way for you guys, and we'll have some more questions afterwards. So, number 10, how many projects, like whatever type of a rehab that you're doing, how's that contractor done in the past? If you're in La Jolla and you just bought a $6 million house and you need a $2 million renovation and you want to sell it for $12 million, did you hire the right contractor? That's a big question. Is it a $100,000 house? Is it a condo? It just depends on the type of project that you have. You're going to want to make sure that that particular contractor is fit for your project. Absolutely, go ahead.
Coincidentally, I've just been working on a project similar to the one you just said in La Jolla. And that is important, is that you choose the contractor based on the job. I have my favorites, but I wouldn't choose them for a job if they hadn't done something very similar. But I mainly represent investors. I'm a real estate agent as well. I only work for investors. Two of them that are nodding their heads are right back there. What we did is we went and found other projects similar in the neighborhood and found a contractor that was working on those, had successfully gone through the Coastal Commission, through everybody else, and got his project done. And that's who we talked to. And that's really helped a lot. I would have loved to bring my favorite guy over there and say, oh, you're going to love this, but he's not the best one for the job. The guy doing the job similar to it down the street is the best guy, and that's what we did.
Absolutely. So we just have another list of questions. Those are the top 10 questions. And we're going to actually pass it off to Rich. And
Fantastic. All
well,
right.
before we get started, actually, we wanted to kind of go over our styles. And because hopefully a lot of us can connect with a lot of you with the different type of styles that we have. I'm going to let Neron start. So then we can have Will and Kim kind of go after and go from there.
Okay, we started out our first projects interviewing lots of contractors, different ones and different jobs, pulling them off of Craigslist, all that, trial and error. And our very first contractor was one of the worst ones. I think there was a $50 job that turned into a $15,000 job. I'm not kidding. It was a swimming pool, and the deck was all bricks, and then there was another huge brick sort of planter flat area with grass that was irrigated. And it turned out that there was a pipe sprinkler valve down underground there that was leaking.
Brand new, by the way.
Yeah, but it wouldn't fill up that planter because it was all brick and mortar, so it actually just passed right through laterally, and it was going into the pool. So the pool kept filling up, okay, and then it would hit the bricks on the other side, and it would just pass through the mortar. And it would flooded the whole side and front yard. And it was an older house, and there was no drainage out to the street, so the entire house actually turned into a muddy swimming pool. And they were trying to figure out, for the life of us, this pool is leaking. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Something's coming from the plumbing to the pool and dumping it in, and there were divers in the pool. It was nuts. It was like 15, and then when we figured out what it was, we just could have shot everybody. Wrong person for that job. It was our first big rehab thing.
Where do you think we came up with a list of questions?
We still made money on the property. So we've worked it now to where we have, we're trying to get it just exclusive. We had like one job this year that went to another contractor, and we should have given it to Ike anyway. So we've got a special relationship now, and Ike is exclusive with us because we give him enough inventory to work on. Like I said, we still spot check him, you know, and he knows it. And we even have an investor relationship with him, so you know he'll even invest with us in some of the houses. So we've got that style thing going on where we're starting to merge our businesses more. So that's how we're operating right now, and we like to be as hands-off now as we can. We trust Ike on most everything. We'll just come in for some design decisions, or you know, hey, we're going out to lunch. Let's see what's going on, or he's got to do some marketing videos. But we're not so we're not micromanaging so much. I hope, you know. Yeah, and we don't want to spend our business on that one house or two houses, so we let Ike do a lot. You know.
Actually, I want them to come to the houses more often. I have to tell them, when are you going to come? No, well, not tomorrow. I said, whenever you have time, I'll make time for you guys to come over and look at it. Because I have some questions at some point that I need to find out what they want to do. Because, you know, every house is not the same. You wouldn't do the same kind of interior for a house that's 100,000 compared to that's going to sell for 400,000. So.
Yeah, when you have a good experienced contractor, they're going to give you some real good ideas. And they'll ixnay some of your really good ideas because it just can't be done. Or, you know, when anything be done, it's going to cost you a lot more money.
It's not that good.
But you know, good contractors are going to give you feedback on design choices. So listen to them.
Kim, or Diane?
Okay. I guess my difference is I am a little more hands-on. I found that the very first project I did that just the fact of being on site more often, I get to choose things that wouldn't make a difference to them, but design items that made a difference in the saleability, I get to choose just because I was there. Like, should the window go here or should it go there? They don't care. But if I'm there, I can say, this looks a lot better. And I mean, it's different things that you think, well, that's in the plans. There's so many things not in the plans that they just have to make a decision. If you're not there, helping them along, showing them you're interested, choosing the things, then you don't get to. So I do that. That's from the very beginning. I've done that. And then now that I'm helping other people buy places, I am more hands-on there. I'm on the property a lot. I help them choose. I help find other, like products, like contractors, like other things. But it is a little more hands-on, but I think it's really fun. I enjoy it every day. It's really fun. Nothing boring about this job.
So Will, I know that you've worked with multiple contractors. Tell us a little about how your business is going.
I probably tried out various different types from one spectrum to the other, evolved over the time. From the start, when I got in very brave. I was telling one of the gentlemen back there, my first project was from Encanto, when things were not, flocking like now, about 4 years ago. And I found the deal, and I tried to, get some money or tried to flip it to people. I stood in front of everybody, this group and all the other clubs. Nobody wanted to take it because it was an Encanto. So I said, okay, so, it looked like the number was going to work. But make a long story short, for that house, I decided, well, I'm going to have to take it down. Nobody wants to do it, so I took it down. I borrowed some money from my retirement funds. And I did it, and the contractor that I chose was and it was about $33,000 of work. It was pretty cosmetic, mainly. And I knew this one handyman who had these different connections, all these amigos, right? And he was really good. He got the job done. I never asked those 10 questions, I made 65 grand. I'm like, all right, cool. This is easy. All right, so probably from there to about 100 houses later, I think we're reaching about 100 now. I tried different types. I went through probably about maybe 10 different general contractors, maybe a dozen. There was a point where I totally trusted. We're doing about 4 deals, maybe 3 deals a month kind of thing in 1 year. We're doing really well, and I had a general contractor whom I really trusted and did really well. He was the operation manager, and I kind of left him hands off, and It went to the point where basically there were no plans. I would walk in, like, you know what I want, make it like the other house. Right? Budget is 50 grand, make it work. Just come tell me when you need money, kind of thing. It worked pretty good. It worked really well. He's done, I think, probably close to about 40 homes, I think, for us, before he got fired, okay? It wasn't him. Daniel does an excellent job, very thorough. And back then I didn't really have a thorough system. So, you know, from the mistakes that I learned, we started putting together a system in place, which is very, very crucial. I think one of the things that I learned is, okay, you could trust the person, but always verify. To do that, you're always going to need a duplicable system. And so now, our style, our company's style is we use both the general contractor and also we use subcontractors, and we do some of the in-house general contracting ourselves. Really depends on the deal, and we also do use time to time like handyman. Don't really suggest you doing it, especially if it's the first time for you. There's a lot of liability. You really got to know what you're doing and how to cover yourself and the liabilities that you expose yourself if you choose to use an unlicensed handyman type of group. So that's what we do.
Rich.
Thank you.
Actually, it's I think our first questions.
What's the first question? I'm really excited because I want to get into that question about why do we need licenses. So before we move to the questions, I want to talk about that real briefly.
Let's talk about that.
What Will just said, you made 65 grand on the first deal, hallelujah, this is easy. How lucky were you, right? Honestly, how many people out here have had the opposite experience? You got a deal, you got somebody involved who's going to help you, and you got hammered, you lost your tail. So yeah, thank you for raising your hand times 20. So it's not that unlicensed handymen are bad. It's just that somebody needs, when you're doing a deal, you're going to pass on to the next party. We're talking about guarantees. They're going to want a guarantee. You're going to have to provide a guarantee. A handyman is not obligated to provide that. He's just an employee on the job. So now you can work with contractors at a very affordable way. So I'm personally a contractor. I have guys that work for me that we give them workers' comp. We consider them employees when they're working on the job, and that's how we manage it. So, but you gotta have the correct structure in place. To do it without a licensed party involved is just, in the long run, asking for trouble. It's like roulette.
Yeah, even the licensed ones, you just want reputable. And we've had a couple of friends of ours that were trying to bust into this business, and their first deal went south. We're in a situation now with another partner that he's got other contractors that are giving impossible bids on a project. I mean, that just the materials alone will cost what they're bidding for the entire project. There's just no way. And they believe them, like, go with that contractor. You don't want somebody to give you these lowball numbers to get the job, or, in this case, I think they're just huffing and puffing. And a couple of friends of ours, I have in mind, that got into a deal with the contractor, and then their numbers for the same stuff. The stuff comes up. You find something new, or you make a design choice, you make a decision, and you got to keep track of the a la carte menu that you keep adding things to. I think some people kind of lose sight of what they're choosing, and at the end, it's like the bill's what? Like, you ate that, you did this. So, and Ike's great about this. I mean, his numbers really do. Your bid's going to be an estimate at the beginning. They come spot on. We can look at emails, we can look and what he charges, exactly what he said, 3 months ago.
So you get somebody with a business partner work ethic, somebody who understands the business. Great. That's what you're ultimately hoping for. And don't step over. What is the saying? Don't step over dollars and pick up dimes. Don't be busting your contractor's chops about if he feels that there's a certain direction that might ultimately make a better product for just maybe a smaller investment.
So I know somebody has some questions. We're going to hold off on questions till the end. You can write them down, and we'll go back to them.
All right, so here's, who's to take advantage by contractors? We should probably say who asked.
Right. So I guess I wanted to ask you guys and ask the audience, you know, who's worked with contractors and who's been hammered or screwed by them?
Hammer.
All right, actually not that many. I'm actually kind of surprised.
I think to be fair, how many contractors are there in the room besides the ones that are sitting? Do we have any contractors in the audience? Including the contractors up here on the panel, how many contractors have been hammered or screwed by their investors in the past? Alex raising his hand. It wasn't us. It wasn't us. So, the relationship does go both ways.
All right, so let's just start with the panel here. What, you've had some bad experiences with contractors?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I went to the Denver, right?
So, you know, there's a reason.
So what I was kind of referring back, you know, what Imran and, Daryl, they have set up. This is kind of like ideal, okay? But it's really hard to accomplish, to have a relationship that works this long and that's very equitable both ways, and that, but that's probably a good goal to have. I would love to have this kind of relationship. Now, going back to what I was saying, right, I'll try. So, going back to what I'm saying, you know, about you trust but you verify, I think will come up in the following question. There are a few things that you probably want to put in place as a safeguard, no matter who you are dealing with. So I'll just, bring up an example. So the general contractor that I was working with, who's done about 40 homes for us, got fired. Okay, the reason why that happened was because they were doing really stellar work. Quality-wise, they were licensed, insured, okay, and it was the brothers, and they were doing really well. And they were reputable, and which was the reason I chose them. And because of their track record, pretty much it came to a point where it was kind of like, all right, I could trust you, you run the business for us on the operation side. Now, at the end of our journey together, what had happened was I didn't have those safeguards in place. I did, and then I kind of removed them, and they weren't really complete anyway to start with. And there were some personal things that happened. The brother-in-law had DUI problems, which I didn't know about. I didn't know some personal stuff. He had 3 strikes, he had 3 DUIs, he had no trucks. So as a general contractor, they couldn't really get around. And at the time, he was managing 5 properties. And I was doing it solo back then. I have a partner now, but I was doing it solo back then. And I was just I was out gathering, I was trying to get all the investors to work with me and picking up properties. And so I left the operation side. I would rarely go out. Maybe I'll check maybe every 1 to 2 weeks on how things are going. And I didn't know the jobs weren't really moving along. And the other brother had some tax problems with the IRS. Okay? So when they came for the money, I'm like, okay, cool, all right, here you go, write the checks. So, and then I realized things weren't getting finished. So out of the 5, they finished 2. They left the 3 hanging. Okay? It was a very, very expensive lesson for me. Okay, so that was just probably the worst example that I had.
Okay. I guess the worst I ever had is I had a contractor that I was paying, of course, and he wasn't paying subs. How many people in the audience have had that happen to them personally? Lots. It's really difficult to keep an eye on that. Even licensed, unlicensed, the subs come out of the woodwork, something goes wrong with your contractor, he leaves, the subs find you, and all of a sudden you have liens on the house. That is very difficult. One of my favorite clients tells me that there's a way to bond around the lien. At closing, you put money in escrow for the amount that you're being sued for, plus another additional amount, and you can still sell the house. If it is a fairly innocuous thing, it's not a big deal. If it's something that the contractor is maybe inflating a bit, but he has the leverage. If you can't sell that house, that takes away that leverage. So that's, Chris Lund actually told me that he's worked on that quite a bit. You guys probably know him. But that's one of the best things is to bond around. I did not know about that at the time it happened to me. And the thing is, when you're the investor, you are, the buck does stop there. Unfortunately, the buck flows out there as well. And you just have to pay for it twice. And that's what I did. So the best, knowing that, after it's happened to you once or knowing someone it's happened to is a good lesson learned. And you can watch for that. But it is very difficult without the lien release. Even with the lien release, sometimes they'll come out when you don't expect them. And that's probably the worst, getting taken advantage of, I suppose.
And again, that's why you guys are here. I mean, you guys are here to network. We mentioned Chris Lund. Okay, he's in the audience as well. He does a lot of rehabs. Thanks for showing up. And stick around afterwards, ask a bunch of questions. That's why we're here.
All right, let's move on.
We told you our pool story.
Yeah.
Yeah, our pool store was a little fun.
All right, it seems like a very simple question. How much should a rehab cost? All right, 10,000 or 100,000 or 2 million?
Well, Reggie seems to think that we spend too much on our houses. But it's such a good deal, and we're trying to create a brand and a name for ourselves. But we also go quality of work as well, and I think that's one of the reasons. A typical average rehab, it depends. If you're ripping everything out and replacing everything cosmetic, it could run you between $50,000 and $70,000.
Yeah, he doesn't really, he just rips us. Because, when you look at anybody's business, where's all the money going? So some people might actually get a rehab done less than another group, but they're only quoting the actual cost of work on the house, and they've got an in-house, they may be subbing it, for instance, and they've got in-house management, and those people get paid. Whereas in our case, it's all outsourced. So, when we quote our rehab prices, it's including all of the management, all of that stuff, because it's taken care of on that side. So, it really depends on how much you're putting into it. It's like you flip this house kind of TV shows and they put those numbers up there. There's no way, right? They're leaving a lot of stuff out. That the money ultimately is about how much money ended up in your pocket out of that. So, depends if you want it.
Okay. I'd like to look at a price per square foot, depending on the product. I like to do condos myself. I kind of collect condos. I'm a buy and holder personally. So I can do a condo for about $10 a square foot. If I want to do granite and I want stainless and tile, then it's more like $20 a square foot. And the clients that I work for are doing bigger projects, and it's probably more like $40, $50 a square foot, depending on the finishes. And of course, it'll go up from there.
Yeah, every job is different. It depends on the finishes you pick. If it's an A, B, or C house, that's usually how we'll classify it. If it's in La Jolla or it's in Paradise Valley or something like that, the price is obviously going to vary. But a standard house, and it also, like right now, a lot of homes that I'm seeing as a contractor are in very bad condition because there's not a lot of volume, so people are buying the ones that nobody wanted before. So those are going to take the rehab costs up, but I would say somewhere between 50 and 70.
So an A house would cost, what, roughly 30 to 40? A B house would be 50 to 60, and a C house could be 70 on that.
When I rate a B, C, I'm doing off of finishes, so it more like the area. So if you're in La Jolla, that's going to get an A finish house. So instead of using Home Depot tile in the bathroom, I'm going to go somewhere else, Porcelanos, and get something nicer for that bathroom. So that the more the material, the labor is close to the same based on the square foot of the house, but the material is a lot more.
Will, what was your last rehab? How much did that cost?
Last one?
Yeah, just price.
$155,000.
$155,000 rehab.
Yeah.
Ours, we got current ones, but the one we just finished, $78,000. That was in El Cajon.
But I mean, we did structural stuff. I mean, the entire roof was new. We moved supporting walls. All the plumbing, copper plumbing in the entire house was stolen. right after we bought it. And then after we did that, then one of the subs tools got stolen. So yeah, we're starting to put cameras in all of our houses.
How much was yours?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you my favorite one. I just sold a house last week. I bought it a year and a half ago. I put $2,000 was the total renovation. It wasn't a house, I'm sorry, it's a condo. Maybe I said that wrong. It's a condo, I put $2,000 in. I rented it for a year and a half for about $1,000 cash flow a month. I did buy this one outright, so it's $1,000 a month for a year and a half. I bought it for $80 in El Cajon and sold it for $151 last week. That's why I do condos and kind of chicken.
This is can I say something? This is a loaded question, because there really is no typical, like rehabs out there, right? I mean, it really depends on what kind of structural things we need, how big the house is, and just like Daniel said, what kind of finishes you can put in there. So,
We did a real light aesthetic fixer that cost almost $40,000 because it was $1 million house, and
It was literally paint and carpet, and a $10,000 refrigerator.
yeah, and some minor repairs, because the dog chewed up some of the cabinetry and stuff. Oh, and we had to the wood flooring had to be redone, but it was like a $25,000 floor that we had to redo. The refrigerator had to be replaced, and we had to match the we could have gotten your typical basic stuff in there, but all of the other appliances were monogrammed. So we got the monogram refrigerator. It was like $9,500 for that, and then the Viking barbecue outside. So it depends. We've done $2,000 in cosmetic fixtures. We've got a plain house that cracked slabs and sliding down a hill. It's going to be over $100 grand. That depends.
I just want to let you know that when you go to the property to get a rehab, make sure that your scope of work is complete. You got everything covered. Because every time you come back and there is a change order, it's going to cost you twice as much. Anything that you go in for a change order, twice as much. And not because the contractor is trying to rip you, but because those trade people have gone away from the house. Now you call them back and there's an additional cost.
Correct, and I think that's one of the questions on here. So, what is a change order? Is when something changes, and you've got to document it, and so you know how much it costs, so you can add that to your budget. That's all a change order is. It just has to be signed off. That way it's all legally legit.
I just want to say I have 3 projects that we're going to start in succession. The first one next week is going to get carpet and paint over $4,500. All it needs. The next one is a $25,000 rehab. It's going to be kitchen, granite. It's a very small house, and some flooring and some paint. And then the one after that is in Carlsbad, beautiful neighborhood. It's $150,000 rehab minimum. So
It depends.
yeah, it depends, and I won't use the same people on each. I only use a licensed contractor on the first one because my guy, who's a regular painter and handyman, he's an employee of mine. I'll just send him out there to do the work.
So, and one thing nobody mentioned yet is it's a good idea to give a minimum of 3 bids. Starting out, especially on if you don't know. So go get 3 bids, and they should be relatively close. If there's a big discrepancy, well then there's probably got to look at the bids and find out if they're apples to apples. Because if they're not, then you're going to have a different price.
This is the question everybody wants to know. Where do you find a good contractor?
Well,
Trial and error.
Diane actually mentioned it earlier. I believe, and I think we all agree, referrals. I mean, that's probably the #1 way to find the best contractors, referrals.
Yeah, and when somebody has the best and they're doing a little bit of volume, they're not going to tell you that they're It happens. Your favorite contractor, they got to eat, and like if your business slows down a little, they're looking for other jobs, and so keep them busy.
You definitely find them on the stage, right? You got 2. Ike is exclusive in the band, so definitely vouch for them. Now, as far as where do you find them? Referrals, but if the referrals don't work, you can always go to Pro Desk at Home Depot And then the questions that you could ask are twofold. One, you ask him, hey, who's like the best general contractor, or even I ask even the subcontractor that buys things in volume. Okay, and then I would ask the next thing I would ask, hey, do they actually work for investors? Okay, or it could go the other way. You actually ask them, hey, is there any other investors coming in here and buying things in volume? Okay, and what are the contractors that they're using? So that's one way. The other way, and I've tried that, I've used that, and the other way you could actually find out is, it's pretty easy to find out where, especially if you have information, you have connections with the title companies, or you have ways to pull title profiles or whatnot. You can find out pretty easily, or even Realist through MLS. Pretty easy to find out the owners, right? Pretty easy to find out who are the owners, and there are guys who are doing things in volume. Okay? And usually those guys have a pretty good system, and usually they have a pretty good team. And there are ways to find out like which houses they actually have once you find one. And so I used to actually go around to see what they do. Okay? And then I would just walk in, start talking with whoever's working in there. I say, are you the GC working in here? Are you the supervisor or whatnot? If not, I'll take the phone numbers and I'll start making my phone calls. And I found a couple of good contractors that way.
That's funny because we're doing a house in Claremont right now in Arillo, and that's one of our projects you can see on YouTube if you find our Facebook or our YouTube channel, you can subscribe. But one of the things I did is I went out looking for comps. They had an open house, went around the corner, walked in, talked to the agent for a while, asked if she worked with investors, everything was going great. And, oh, so this is an investor house? Yeah, well, who's the investor? I might know. Will Kim. All right. And the place looked fantastic, so good job.
That's actually how I met Will. We were doing a project, around the corner, or maybe something he was getting ready for, or just flipped, and he'd seen our crew where they're working. He had obviously been stopping by every once a week to see the progress in the house, and came and got our information, and that's actually how we met. And I'll say for us, and it's different for every person, every way is different. We don't advertise, I've never advertised as far as, I don't have any billboards out there. I rarely pass out cards, like I'm out tonight, we just don't need that. Most of the time, we get referrals. I work with a lot of investors, and we'll be doing a house, and then we'll get a call from another investor, say, hey, I just seen such and such house, and I've seen the finish, they did really like it, why don't you come do this? So it is something you want to get a referral from. We've had the same thing when you meet a good contractor, he also should have some good people working with him. So there's sometimes people call me, hey, do you have a painter that we can come out? We don't want to have you come out and do the whole project. We just have a painter. And so usually if you have someone you trust, they're going to have good contacts as well. So
I've got something on that one. If you're going to manage the project yourself, I think a good tip is to use subs that work in that area. Because for many, many reasons, they're going to charge you travel time if you don't. They're not going to be that likely to come back if you have a problem. Get them to work in the area. A good way to find them, I found, is kind of like you said with Home Depot. Get yourself a wholesale contract at the wholesale suppliers. For example, I use Rayo Carpet. I got a wholesale account there. I tell them I flip condos, and they gave me an account, and I needed a new carpet layer. So I went to Rayo, where I get my stuff from, and said, who do you recommend? They gave me 3 guys. I tried all 3 of them out, picked one, and I've been using them ever since. So you can do that in different areas of town. I've got one condo in Oceanside. I don't want to pull my guy that works in Santee up to Oceanside. It costs me more. It's more trouble for him. He doesn't want the job of getting higher. So I did. You find a wholesale company up there where you're going to get your supplies, get them to recommend someone, and then try them out. Check the references.
So we're going to try to speed this up a little bit and get to these questions. I believe there are 15 questions, so
Okay.
we don't have to get them all. But we'll let you see them.
I'm going to give away, just regarding what Daniel said, I'm going to give one of my little secrets away that I've done. When I have a project running and I've got 2 or 3 subcontractors on there, I will get to know them as well as the general, and I will have their number available, and I will often ask them, who else do you work for? Who else does what Nathaniel does? I might need somebody else, and so make sure you interview all the talent on your job. How do we know if we're being overcharged besides the fact that we don't have any money left?
I mentioned that earlier, 3 days, get 3 days. I think that's the easiest way, and then you can kind of engage from there.
Just real quick on ours, I do a lot of investor flips. I do some custom stuff as well, but a lot of investor flips, and every investor thinks they're getting ripped off. Just look in the mirror, you're going to see them. You're thinking you get ripped off. So how I do it, because I work with a lot of different guys, is I break it down, give a direct cost. I give a line item for all the materials. I mean, I put together a spreadsheet. It goes from top to bottom, tax, everything included, bam, and then I send that off. So there's 4 lights that says this is the light. I'll even put the SKU number from Home Depot at times so they know exactly what they're getting for the materials. And then our labor, the way we do it is we bid it. If it's a 4-week project, I have a per week price for so many guys to be on site. I know what it's going to take. I guarantee it'll be done in that time. And then I make a percentage on the direct cost. So the investor sees the direct cost, and then I make a percentage off of all the direct costs. And that's how I ensure that the investor is getting a good price.
All right, and to that end, just the bidding process itself will give you a lot of insight into what kind of contractor you're dealing with. The notice or the amount of the bid, not just the price, but the professionalism of it, the scope of it, how much you can tell, you know what he's talking about. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the best way is multiple bids, and one way that we do it is we'll have one contractor give a real thorough bid, and then we'll take all the numbers out of that and give that to another contractor just so we can try to get apples to apples and say, okay, what would you do this, and have them walk the house. What would you?
And we hate when that happens, because I'm the one that they compare it to.
Yeah, it is, as from a contractor's point of view, you're like, thanks a lot, I just wrote that all up so you can make it easy for the next guy. But we kind of already have a good idea. And after you do this for a little while, as an investor, you get a pretty good idea. One of the killers are people that stress too much and just wringing their hands, worrying about every last penny. You got to take a bigger picture view of things. We've been in this situation. Early on, we were like this. And we do partner with folks, and often, they're partnering because they're new with us, and they'll be going through the same growing pains that we went through. But we've had a project slowed down by a month, one of them even 2 months, and you've got other carrying costs and everything's going on. So there's always kind of a big picture cost-benefit thing going on. You've done your general bids, you've got a pretty good idea that you're in the ballpark. You also want quality, so it's not just about that, and you want consistency. So, if they're hitting the numbers and they're giving you the same stuff over and over again, even if somebody comes in a little lower, it's kind of, we might maybe put them on a small job.
Right, the lowest bid is definitely not necessarily the right bid. So I'm going to put the pedal to the metal here. We got to get through all the questions. We want to get some Q&A in. So, oops, I messed up there. One item need permitting.
Let's get this to the contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you're doing anything structural, that's number one, you need to get a permit for it. If you're doing any electrical changes to the circuit and stuff like that, you need to get a permit for it. If you're going to do any plumbing moves, sewer lines, plumbing moves, you need to get a permit for that. There are people that don't get it done, that's fine, but if something goes wrong and you have to go back to somebody, then you need to have a leg to stand on.
Yeah, they want you to get a miscellaneous permit for really anything you're going to do. If you want to paint the wall, they almost want you to have a permit for it. I've worked with a lot of investors. I'm sure that a lot of you don't want to pull permits. If you're doing an addition or you want to add to, I even had investors come to me and say, hey, I want to add a bathroom, no permits. Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to put it as a tax record. So you pull permits on everything you need to pull permits on. If there's something small inside the house, I'm not going to go down to the city and pull a permit to, put a new vanity in. But there are miscellaneous permits that you can do that is still a permit you can pull. It's roughly really expensive. It's $200 maybe for that miscellaneous permit. It's very easy. You can do it, and then no one's standing over your shoulder wondering if you got a permit or not.
One of our new sponsors, Ian, back here in the back, raise your hand. It's called a Permit Pro. If you have any more questions about permits, go see that guy.
Right, okay, so the next question is, the permit process, how much does it cost, and what's the time frame? Let's just put it this way, it won't add that much time to the job. It won't add an appreciation, if you're planning ahead, it's in your scope of work, contractors on top of it, it's almost seamless. It will cost you a few bucks for the permit, but it's.
But if you don't do it, and then a city inspector comes by your house after you're all done, it's gonna add a lot of time.
And it also depends on the area too. If you start working with someone that's done houses in different areas, there's different, Nashville City and San Diego, they handle it way different than each other, so that will also be some knowledge.
And your buyers have been asked the question, I mean, if you're doing additions, adding square footage, that's a no-brainer.
Okay, so my experience has been, again, a little different. I tried gamut of different things. Permits, no permits, including additions, getting flat, getting tagged, getting the job stopped, making it work. I've had a lot of experiences in that department, okay? So, what is my conclusion today? Do I pull permits for everything? No, I will be honest, I don't. Now, the reason is because, and don't tell anybody I said this, depending on what it is, you could actually have an addition, you could still sell it with the square footage, depending on how much percent you're, adding, depending on the appraisal and stuff, including adding a bathroom. From my experience, okay, it's not, you could get it done. Now, as far as the permits, really simply, and probably Ian could probably attest to this, what do you need to pull permits for? Basically, if you're changing things that's like items and you're not putting in recess, you're not putting in recess lighting, where you are basically changing the fixtures, and you're not moving the plumbing, you don't pull permits, but sometimes you do those work, and I'll be honest with you, we don't always pull permits. I currently have a project right now, we didn't pull permits, we did the stucco, we did the windows, we actually changed some framing inside, so structural changes, we didn't pull permits. We decided we're just gonna go for it. Because if we had to pull permits for everything that we did there, it will take us one month. I've done an addition, various size of additions, it would take anywhere from 1 month to probably 2 months, depending if you have to go through historical or not. But this one we decided not to. We got flagged just last Friday, okay? We were told we needed an inspector out, so we assessed the situation. The inspector was out Monday, okay? And so we pretty much, kind of cleaned it up, and we're back on again in 2 days. Not too bad. All we had to do was basically apply for the permits for the deck and change one window for the egress.
You gambled and you won. Okay, so I'm gonna answer number 7. Why is there a difference between contractor prices? All things being equal skill levels, equal business success. It's probably because the scope of work is different. They're not bidding apples to apples, they're bidding apples to oranges. So, what happens if the county shows up and shuts your project down? I mean, you just hope you have rules with it.
Yeah, you just got to work with it and get the project back on track. So it happens.
What is the mechanics of it?
It's not that bad. It's not necessary.
Most of the time it's not. What is the mechanics lien? As a contractor, what do you do to get a mechanics lien? Why would you do that?
The mechanics lien is really the only form of assurance that or leverage that we have to get our final check. That's the whole goal of being a licensed contractor, which maybe you want to use a handyman because you may want to not pay him because he can't come after you with a lien. But if you're using a licensed contractor, it's the only leverage as a contractor we have to get final payment. I haven't had to put any liens on any properties, but again, I came through referrals and different stuff. But it's our only assurance to get our final payment for the house sales.
Let's go ahead and hand it off to the audience since we're kind of near the end, because I think some of these questions are people that are
All right, well,
burning questions people
from this
have.
moment on, you've got a question about this topic. Can a contractor lien a property for work that was not completed? Again, this contract, this question specifically.
And that becomes a very legal question. You don't want to get into a situation where you're fighting a legal battle when you have your investment property sitting on. So best thing is to resolve it before he puts the lien on it, or find out why he's putting a lien on it. Maybe there's some way to resolve it. Lawyers make money on this, you lose money.
For a contractor to put a lien on a property, is there some kind of process he should do before he puts the lien on? Should he do a preliminary lien too?
Exactly, there is a process.
There's a process that you do at the beginning, he files a preliminary lien, notifies the owner he's going to be working on the property. Owner gets the preliminary lien in the mail and panics because this is being liened before the job even starts. But that's a necessary step. Okay, how does an investor get around an illegitimate contractor lien? We're stuck on lien.
We just talked about bonding around it, so yeah,
Bonding around it.
perfect explanation, that's the way to do it, so Diane.
Like Ike said, don't get there.
Yeah.
What is the change order? One of the biggest issues between contractors and homeowners and projects, and what's the number one rule for a change order? Make sure you get it right. Go ahead.
Yep, we hit that, yeah.
All right.
Can I say something real quick on change
Go ahead.
orders? The main thing for a change order, because a lot of investors I've worked with in past, they don't want to fill out change order. They're like, oh yeah, just do it, no problem. Well, that's great until it's time to get paid. It's like, what? It costs that much? So the change order really is for you to say yes or no. I do want to spend it. I have budgeted for this, or I don't. Because you have a lot of ideas. We have ideas that maybe we'll suggest, but it actually just reassures both of us what you're getting for what price, so you're not surprised at you.
Yeah, some investors seem to get amnesia when it comes time to, they say yes one time and 2 weeks later, like, I never approved that. So, yeah, get it right.
And if you got a stack of
They approve it because they love that it's in there and that it sold the house, but now they don't want to pay for it.
Right, and when you're working on a project, you get a stack of change orders, all of a sudden you realize, oh man, I've already 40 grand in changes. I better turn the spigot off.
It's that a la carte thing. You can get what they want.
All right, so should investors charge contractors per diem for going over a project?
And who's familiar with the per diem? Do you guys know? Okay, some people are not. What this means is you have a contract with your contractor for a certain time and a certain price. Well, what happens if that contractor just decides to go on vacation for 2 months? You're going to be stuck with nothing. So we like to, or we used to, not with Ike necessarily, but
No, I've done that.
and he has done that, yeah. What we like to do is put like if you go over time, if it's 4 weeks and a day, for every day you go over, it's going to cost you $100 and you put $100 back in my pocket. It gives the investor a little bit of leverage and it makes the contractor finish.
It's a little bit like change orders too, because things happen that are going to extend the time on the project, and so this is for the contractor to protect themselves. And if there's something that's going to add time, whether it's a delay on getting a permit or it's extra work that wasn't in the original scope, that's going to add time. Again, the contractor is going to want to not just specify price, but hey, this is going to extend the time by this amount, another week or something. So.
Just real quick, and if you're going to, I personally as a contractor, I won't accept a contract with a per diem on flip, just because there's so many things, but that's me, everybody has a different way. However, on a commercial project we've done, they do it all the time, but for this is an incentive. If you get it to a contractor, he's like, what? But if you tell him for every day he's done early, you'll give him that also back to him, then it's a give and take, and everybody's a win-win.
What happens if somebody gets hurt on your property? Be it a contractor, employee?
Call the insurance company.
That's exactly why you have insurance.
Yep. Simple as that.
And I got bit by a dog on a job site once, believe it or not. A homeowner's dog bit me. And he just panicked. He's like, why do we have insurance?
That's what counts. Take your house.
I'll sue you if I get rabies.
It's a great way to get a house. It's why to get a house with a dog.
All right. And you partner with a contractor. Living proof.
Yes. Actually, it's a great way to get a job done on time and on a great budget. Because if there's any profit sharing involved or anything like that, where there's an incentive if they're investing money in. Yeah.
Well, it's two
So absolutely you can.
The contractor actually gets to be involved in the transaction, and again, it's what Nimrod just mentioned. The other side to it is if you're partnering with your contractor, we use hard money to buy a house. He puts his money in to fix the house. That means we don't have to put any money into the deal. Makes sense.
Somehow we still put money in it. Message.
Are we almost at the end of the questions here?
Yes.
I just want to okay, so I want to share with you something about the liens, because I know Diane actually shared something about the subcontractors not getting paid. So Mike Cantu once mentioned this, and I thought that was a really good, like a picture. Like any deals that we do is kind of like a dual flame. You light up both ends. One end is the rehab, the rehab cost. The other side is the holding cost. And you want to have something left in the middle before they all burn up. Which means that you have to really watch the rehab side really well. That's what we talked about. How do you not get overcharged? How do you actually manage? How do you not get ripped off? That was one of the questions, right? How do you not get hammered? I think the reason there are a lot of questions about the liens, and I personally had to learn this the hard way. So I had problems with, especially when, my trusted contractors, when they had personal problem, their real characters showed up, or whatever it is. I would like to believe it was their, bad day, and they ended up not paying a bunch of subcontractors. They started coming to me and it's like, hey, this guy owes me $5,000, this guy owes me $2,000, I'm like, what do you mean? I paid everything, right? How do you get around it? Would you like to know? How do you protect yourself? Would you like to know? Right? Okay, so there are a few simple steps that you want to use as a safeguard. Number one, do not pay ahead of the work that's done. How do you do that? You want to have a good schedule in place with broken down items, at least in general items, okay? And to be, personally, I don't like one-third. I used to have that. I mean, if you have a really trusted relationship, no problem. Because a lot of times, we would have like a front demo part and the rough ends as like a 1/3. And a lot of times, once you do that, it doesn't cost like 1/3 of the project. And okay, so a lot of, so I like to have a little bit more granular breakdown, and then especially when I'm starting to work with a new contractor, I like to have them a little bit on a tighter leash. Okay, so and then you would definitely only pay on items that were completed and everything has been written down and you agree to it up front. Okay, you basically nail that down. Secondly, the conditional lien waivers are very, very important. In a way, when you have to fire the guy in the middle, the guy can't come back to you and say, hey, you didn't pay me for these items. You have a conditional lien releases on each payment that you made, and it also correlates to what the items were for. So make sure you have good invoicing from the contractors, okay? So when you pay them. And then the other thing that a lot of people, and then at the end, make sure you get an unconditional waiver. So there's a conditional waiver, and at the end, you have an unconditional waiver upon final payment, okay? Now, one thing that I learned while I was talking with the attorney about this is this is like one of the best things, or best weapons. And I had Nathaniel do this one time. I was like, what is this? And I said, well, this is called notice of completion. Okay? Once the project is done, you go file this thing called notice of completion, and then all of a sudden, you light a fuse, okay? And the time frame that any contractors, or in fact, laborers who's unlicensed, they could also put a lien on your property, by the way. Okay, so you put a fuse, you start the fuse, it gives a general contractor 60 days, and any subcontractors 30 days from the time that you complete the notice of completion, which you have to actually go file at the recorder's office within 10 days of completion of work. So what does that actually translate to? Somebody mentioned here about the prelim. Prelim, if you're a licensed contractor by code, by law, contractor, the Board of Contractor License Board, you have to actually send a prelim notice if you want to file a mechanics lien. Let's say, 20 or 21 days, right? 20 day prelim. Okay, so by the time, if the person didn't send a prelim to you, general contractors, they don't have to send a prelim, but all the subcontractors have to, okay? So work is done. You go put a notice of completion, go file it, okay? And now you're in escrow. Now the prelim, if they didn't send it to you and they realize, oh, there's a notice of completion, and a subcontractor go files they're supposed to go file a, prelim in order for them to put a mechanics lien, but that prelim has to run 20 days. So literally, they only have 10 days of the fuse before they could do anything. So that really shortens everything. And I have cases where a similar thing happened. The guy didn't pay, and I had a notice of completion. The guy couldn't do anything because, there was a notice of completion. In fact, he tried to file it, and he couldn't file it, and came back, and the title basically cleared everything. So it's a really, really great safeguard.
Diane?
I think we're ready for questions. I'm ready.
Right, well, then let me real quick mention. Question number 6, how do you fire a contractor in the middle of rehab? You just
Kind of answered it.
Well, just explain it. You've got to have both your money and your steps completed along the way. And on top of all that, you got to have the guts for it. You got to, if you don't, it's just going to cost you more money and grief. Get in there, stick your chin out, and say, you know what, you suck, you're out of here.
That's the big thing. You got to drop that axe and go with your gut, because it's that fish or cut bait thing. You can get into it. So,
All right, for what they did.
for sure.
That's right.
Like always.
Don't be screwed anything. Yes, sir. Let's do some questions.
I have a question. Do you normally buy all the supplies yourself and then get a bid on the labor only, or do you have the contractor buy all the cabinet supply, vanities, everything, and then they have one big price on
Repeat the question.
supplies?
The question was, do we as investors go buy the materials and have it at the job site, or do we let our contractor go buy the materials? In our case, in our situation, we let our contractor go buy the materials, but that's not always the case. Actually, once in a while, I'll have to make a phone call to Waste Management to go order a dumpster. That'll cost me $550 out of my own pocket to do it. It's already in the bid, but he just takes it out of the bid, and then sometimes we go directly to some of these whatever companies to go to buy our own material. It doesn't happen often in our business.
I can do the opposing viewpoint. On mine, I do that a lot. And it's mainly because I like to pick out the finishes, and I just find it's quicker if I just take that and then I don't have the risk, I don't have the markup, and I don't have the risk, I don't have to take the time to write it all down, which one I want, you go buy this. I just go get it, bring it to the job site, and I pay for the labor. But this is usually in smaller jobs.
Question over here.
Oh, real quick, one last thing too. A difference between if I were to go to Home Depot and buy something and I were to go to Home Depot and buy something, he's going to get 10% off of the price that I would get. So we let him go buy the materials. He can mark it up by 10% and it still doesn't cost us a thing.
Correct. And to mention again, the opposing viewpoint here, when Ike's over there, he's working for you, have a liability issue that he's doing something for you at the Home Depot. So
Right.
instead of you providing
Not my time.
Right.
My time is valuable.
Question to the contractors, foundations. I'm just going through a foundation issue and I got bids from $5,000 to $25,000. Now, would you recommend hiring a specialist that's called so-called foundation specialist, or you contractors handling foundations?
Good question.
It would depend on the conditions, if it's a new foundation or if it's a cracked foundation that we can.
6 cracks in the stem walls and 5.4 inches off from the highest point to the lowest.
Is it post-tension?
That's pretty.
Grade-based foundation. So it needs to be jacked up, but I'm not sure if the pillars have to be, sorry to be so technical.
I wouldn't go with the $5,000 bid.
Yeah, no.
Don't go with that company.
Okay,
But
there's,
do I really need to buy all new pillars that are underneath?
well, there's
They're
two,
on sale right now.
yeah, there's two, in my opinion, there's two ways to handle that. We've done it both ways. One, to have a specialist come out and do it, it's obviously the most expensive, but you're gonna get it done right. The other way is to have a structural engineer come out, sign, get him, you're gonna pay him $600-700 just to write up what he wants, fine. Let him say exactly what he wants, spell it out. Then you can get other bids from concrete guys that will come in and do that if they can do it up to his specifications. And then from there, you can get quotes that lower the price.
But are you as a contractor doing it yourself?
No. I would, if that's what you're asking, if you had me come in, I've been in this situation a lot of times, then I'm gonna call a structural engineer, then I'm gonna call my concrete guy, and I'm gonna put it all together, I'm gonna make sure they get paid, make sure it gets done, and then I'm gonna put a markup on it for me doing that.
We've actually run into a lot of these recently, so we've got some major slab repairs going, I think 3 or 4 houses right now, and we ran into exactly this question. We get these bids, and there's the one company that just wants to, put piers and jack up the whole house and re-level it that way, and it's going to be $35,000 to the one that says, well, I think we can get away with just stitching the cracks together and you're fine. The way we get around it is you get the structural engineer, you pay that a few $100 for that report, it's like $600-700, and we got a great one through, again, trial and error referrals, and what he does is say, okay, well, you could do the real expensive thing, and here's what you can do. Here's kind of a medium version, and here's the $5,000 version. Put in that report, like, justifying each one. And so we've got a house where we could spend $35,000 jacking up that foundation, putting all the supports in place. So, the soil is already 95% shifted, and there's really not much more that's going to go on in this. So the structural report, it actually justified only stitching the cracks together. And so what we'll do, on that one, we're doing the $5,000 or $6,000, but we're fully disclosed. That's the other important thing. So when a buyer comes to that house, and we're going to show all the pictures, and there's crack slab, and there's all this thing going on, and we're going to show them the multiple bid and the engineering report saying you do this, this, and this. And we did the one that cost us, and here's why. And the structural engineer actually justified it. So that was the way we did it. And the structural engineer said, look, this whole mountain is going down. You've got no choice but to do this, this, and this. We've been stuck with the more expensive version.
Guess where that was? That was out in Spring Valley.
Surprise.
It's getting a little late. If you guys want to hang around, we can ask some more questions. We got to get out of this room. We're going to cut it short, and we can all meet in the bar. We can ask more questions in the bar. Sure, our contractors will be here. Happy to answer some of the questions.
So yeah, we're all over there.
Thank you.